Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute University on Developing Critical Thinking. This presentation is brought to you by Adam Persky from the University of North Carolina, Eshelman School of Pharmacy. The acquisition and assessment of basic knowledge and skills is important and appropriate, but it cannot be the sole focus by which we judge academic success. Developing thinking skills, whether critical, creative, or practical, requires instructors to understand how these skills develop and to use teaching approaches that enable students to build these skills over time. Critical thinking is difficult to define and more difficult to measure. When we're thinking critically, we're using our knowledge and intelligence to arrive at clearly reasoned and justifiable conclusions, positions, or solutions. Developing critical thinking can be difficult, but it is a teachable skill. While most educators have aspirations to help students develop critical thinking skills, individual courses in isolation often fail to improve critical thinking. Critical thinking is best developed through integration of knowledge areas and through a scaffolding approach. Integration allows students to build on previous experiences, provides developmentally appropriate opportunities for them to produce optimal performance, and lays a foundation for further development. Scaffolding provides a layered support mechanism through which students initially receive a greater assistance to complete tasks. As their proficiency increases, that support is gradually removed so that students take an increasing responsibility for their learning. Scaffolding provides clear directions, clarifies purpose, keeps students on task, offers assessments to clarify expectations, points students to worthy sources, reduces uncertainty, surprise, and disappointment, delivers efficiency, and creates momentum. Within a given problem, there are developmentally grounded scaffold steps that could be used to help students think about problems. These steps and process need to be made explicit to the learners to be most effective. First, you must identify and define the issues or problems. Secondly, determine the kind of information that is relevant to solving the problem or resolving the issue. Gather, judge, and connect the information. Generate hypotheses, construct arguments, and make inferences. Test hypotheses, make counter-arguments. And lastly, evaluate the results, possibly revisiting earlier stages in the process. The most meaningful way to assess thinking skills in the classroom is to assess both the answer to the problem, the bread, and the process by which the answers are arrived at, the making of the bread. It is important to differentiate between mistakes in the process and content knowledge deficits. Rubrics are available to help guide assessment. Again, it is best to scaffold the development process, assessing each step before moving along the framework. There is more to thinking than just the ability to solve a problem. It is about being both willing and able to think. While we tend to focus on thinking abilities, the willingness goes more to motivation and intellectual maturity. Thinking takes a concerted effort, and thus is the harder path to take. It is easier not to think. While most instructors and students value critical thinking, valuing is not enough to motivate. One way to motivate and encourage critical thinking is through modeling, which requires instructors to display thinking skills correctly, consistently, and in an enthusiastic manner. Scaffolding will also help to build motivation and build confidence. Here are some tips to developing critical thinking. Instructors who do not understand how thinking skills develop may overestimate students' skills and assign unreasonably complex coursework. Without adequate support, students become overwhelmed, perform slowly, and will resist further efforts. When expectations are too complex, instructors may become frustrated with students' behaviors and revert to low-complexity coursework that fails to promote student development of complex thinking skills. So, you should start slow, scaffold, and support with feedback. Remember, it takes time. This concludes our time for 5-Minute University. After completing a short survey on the next page, you can access the handout full of great resources to get you started with critical thinking in your classroom.